Jisimni Tumas, jiena mill-Polonja, noqgħod Malta, ngħix Malta 5 snin u ftit, naħseb.
Ismi Marian, ex dawn għal 11 sena, ġejna mill-Bristol fl-Ingilterra u palissa ngħix b'Ġiba.
I wanted to start learning Maltese very quickly after I arrived here. Basically, for me, Maltese language is Malta. I understand that English here is a second official language, but the language of the people, the language of the nation, if I want to really belong here, I have to speak the local language. If you go on the street and you listen to people talking to one another, they're talking in Maltese. If you go to a shop, they're talking in Maltese. Yes, when they see you come in, they instantly switch to English because they see you're a foreigner, but you're never part of the society unless you really learn their language. So I wanted to learn almost immediately as I arrived, and I was searching for some courses, and I started less than half a year after my arrival. It's not that I really wanted to adapt to Malta and to Maltese people. I wanted to become Maltese, which I know it's not truly possible, but if I decided to change my entire life, drop everything that I have and move to another country, this is not a temporary destination for me. I don't consider myself an expat who moves from place to place. This is my home. This is where I feel my heart is. So obviously, the language was part of that.
Jien u raġel ġejna hawn fil-2011 għal vaganza. U dak kien is-sena li it-triq bizzazza ta' sliva saret triq pedonali u il-Prim Ministru li fid-dak iż-żmien kien Lawrence Gonzi ġie u għamel taddita bil-Malti. Qatt ma smajt bil-Malti li dak il-mod qabel. U fija hemm ħafna ħsejjes stramba għalija. Imma issa ħarni dawn il-ħsejjes u deċidejt li nixti nitgħallem il-lingwa. Fil-librerija sibt il-ktieb Teach Yourself Maltese ta' Joseph Aquilina skont il-ktieb. U bidejt naqra dan il-ktieb. Wara, meta ġejna hawn bil-mod permanenti, bidejt bil-kors ta' MCAST ta' 13 sena kors qasira u niftakar li bdejna bin-numri. Imma issa naf li il-Maltin in-numri kważi kollha bl-Ingliż. Imma bil-mod. Wara il-kors, nsib li tallimt kważi xejn u imma għadni il-xawqa li inkompli. U rajt reklam fil-supermarket li hemm persuna li tagħti lezzjoni għal barranin. Fil-fatt kien raġel għallim tal-iskola sekundarja u bidejt miegħu u nadmu flimkien għal 5 snin.
I had no idea how to start learning Maltese. My colleagues at work, actually, my previous company, they told me that there is a course at an organization called Lifelong Learning, and that this is a course which is after hours for foreigners. So I started looking it up, and there were several places where I could learn it. I lived in Birkirkara at the time, so Msida wasn't far away. A course at 6 p.m. after work in Msida wasn't a problem at all. And the cost was great as well, because for European citizens it was like 35 euros for an entire year, almost nothing.
Għamilt ukoll il-kors tal-Malti għal barranin, it-tieni level ta' tagħlim tul il-ħajja u irrealizzajt li fid-dan is-sena tallimt ferm aktar mill-istudenti tal-jiem tul il-ħajja. Kont naf aktar kliem, aktar dwar il-lingwa, u wara din is-sena bdejt il-kors MQF1 li kelli l-istess silabu tal-Malti għal barranin imma immirat għal Maltin. Maltin li ma jistawx jiktbu il-Malti. Jitkellem bil-Malti imma m'għandhomx il-ħila biex jikteb u jifhem saw il-grammatika, etc. etc. Wara dan il-kors, tnejn korsijiet għal livell ordinarju, l-eżami MQF 2 u 3. Wara l-ewwel kors għamilt it-2 u 3 fil-2018 għaddejt mill-O-level ta' Malti. Determinata kont biex nadi mill-eżami tal-O-level. U ħadd gost kollox, ħadd gost is-suġġett, ħadd gost il-ktib li kellna li dak iż-żmien kien jisimhu bejn ħoltejn. U ħafna stejjer sabiħa, ħafna poeżiji, ħadd gost bi kollox.
I have mixed feelings. I had an amazing time with the teacher who was running that course. Extremely passionate. She prepared all the materials herself, like a whole book of 100 pages of exercises and everything. This wasn't given to her. She was given a very basic curriculum. She created her own course on the basis of this. She was very passionate. She wanted to teach us. But the curriculum itself was based on the original courses which were designed for Maltese people who need to learn grammar and orthography, who know how to speak Maltese. They've spoken Maltese since they were kids at home to their families, but they don't know the formal writing, grammar, things like this.
Waħda mill-affarijiet li innutajt fil-korsijiet tal-barranin kien in-nuqqas tal-opportunitajiet biex jitgħallmu. Għax ovvjament il-maġġoranza ta' barranin li jgħixu hawn iridu jitkellmu man-nies, mhux jiktbu lilhom.
Almost the entire course was focusing on this. She was trying to teach us some vocabulary as well, but the curriculum itself that we had to have an exam from later on was on grammar.
Il-grammatika kien l-aktar ħaġa importanti fil-eżami għal barranin.
After the first lesson, there were like 25 people in the first lesson. Second lesson, there were maybe 15. And there were only 7 of us who finished the course. Only 7 lasted. Because a lot of them felt that they're learning stuff that is useless to them. That after a year of learning, they still can't even speak a basic sentence.
L-esperjenza tiegħi, jekk int mhux minn pajjiż Arbi, impossibbli, wara sentejn tal-lezzjoni tista' tgħid ftit kliem biss, kważi isem biss. Anki jien, wara sentejn, kważi ngħid ftit kliem biss.
They know how to conjugate every verb. They know how to write. They understand all the rules. But if somebody is trying to talk to them, they don't understand what the person is saying, and they're not even able to reply. That was also a problem that one of my best friends, also from Poland, who moved here later on, she speaks perfect Spanish, perfect Italian, perfect English. And she started learning Maltese for similar reasons to me, because she lives here, she felt that she wants to know the language. She quit after like 2 months of courses because she felt that this was just not effective in teaching communication in the language. We did have a few exercises trying to, for example, understand a short recording or a short reading exercise or a bit of speaking, but very little. Lifelong Learning actually offered a separate course which was called Maltese Conversation, which I also took later on, And that one, my first experience was also very bad because the teacher was simply not prepared to run the course. There was like there was no plan behind it. The teacher was mostly speaking throughout the entire lesson without anybody else actually participating, without any interaction. People had a hard time understanding him, like there was no plan. Then I had another conversation class, which was actually with my first teacher, and that was very different because she was well prepared. But again, I have a feeling that courses, the quality of courses depends on what teacher you get, because it is the teacher themselves that actually prepares the whole lesson and the method of teaching, and not the curriculum that the organization gives.
I think it's the syllabus that is the problem. In the fact that the syllabus requires them to go through all this grammar. So I think really it needs personally, it needs a bit of a revamp really. Wara sentejn ta' lezzjoni fit-tagħlim tal-ħajja, m'hemmx lezzjoni oħra għal barranin.
Nothing that I could find that is beyond that except literature or study of the language, you know what I mean? But I don't really feel that I need more qualifications. I'm not aiming to become a Maltese teacher at the university. I don't want to be a professor. I just want to speak.
Forsi issa hemm lezzjoni għal barranin il-skola tal-lingwa fil-università u forsi hemm xi postijiet oħrajn, imma fid-dak iż-żmien ma kontx naf dwar xi korsijiet.
I thought, all right, there are no further courses of lifelong learning. There must be some other courses of Maltese. Perhaps those courses will help me learn more. So I found ones at University of Malta. And I think there are 3 courses, 3 levels at the University of Malta. And I really wanted to join. And then I look at the curriculum, I look at the time when the lessons are, and the lessons are at 3 p.m. At 3 p.m. Like, I work till 5. How can I take a course at 3 p.m.? Who, out of working people who want to learn the language, can take a course at 3 p.m.? From one end, I understand it. The teachers at the university also work until a certain time. They don't work in the evenings. But this is fit for maybe some students, foreign students who come here, but not for adults who want to learn the language. And any other private courses that I found some at one of the local colleges as well, was the same problem. It was a course in the morning, during a week, not on a weekend. So I simply had no way of taking any other courses except lifelong learning, even if I wanted to invest in them. The one option that I did find was Future Focus, who have a MQF free course, which is meant for Maltese people who have not passed their O-levels in Maltese and who need it especially for LSEs. Obviously, the whole course was again about grammar and orthography, but at least I could actually attend it because it was on Friday evenings and Saturday mornings. I do appreciate the fact that I have certificates which show that I have a certain level of Maltese, which might help me in the future with applying for citizenship, which I'm planning to do. But these certificates don't really mean that I can use Maltese in practice.
Naħseb li ċ-ċertifikati għal barranin mhux importanti. Għax irridu biss jitkellmu man-nies. Jikkomunikaw, jipoġġu ħdejhom u jifhmu u jirrispondaw.
I've taken courses in cultural orientation, which are courses meant for third country nationals. Even though I am a European citizen, I took these courses to try to learn something more. And my colleagues from these courses also take basic Maltese courses, 2 levels that they have to pass in order to qualify for a long-term residence in Malta. Again, these people, which are lovely people, they pass their second level of a course and they cannot even say a single sentence in Maltese.
You can do this I belong course. It doesn't seem to work, does it? Because people, my experience, you go anywhere and I tend to, I go in shops and I bark at them, Maltese? And they mostly understand that. They go, no, I don't understand Maltese.
So what's the point of those courses? Yes, they know grammar, they understand a lot of things, but they don't speak. When I try to speak with them, I get no response. It's not the language that is the problem. It is the fact that foreigners are not forced to live surrounded by the Maltese language, and that the structures for teaching Maltese are still developing, I think. These two things together make it so difficult. After I finished the two courses that were meant for foreigners, I was looking for a way to improve further. So first, I started taking private lessons. I had private conversations lessons with my first teacher. That was quite okay. I also had a great teacher who used to teach kids. The guy used to bring gadgets and for example, I still remember that one lesson when he put different pieces of clothes in front of me and we were pretending that we're in a shop, that I'm the shop attendant or that I'm the client. Things like that were great. And then I had some online lessons and COVID hit, of course, so everything had to be online. But even after all of this, I walk into a shop, I don't really have much of a problem speaking. I say what I want, and the shopkeeper replies to me and I have no idea what they said. If I watch the news in Maltese, even if I watch some TV, let's say we sometimes watch Mużika, I can understand almost everything. I have no problems at all. But then, as I said, when my girlfriend talks to her son and when they argue about something related with school, I have no idea what they're talking about. I can understand bits and pieces, but just bits and pieces. I've tried practicing at home, but practicing with family, it's actually much more difficult than practicing with the teachers. So yes, I've tried, but I still feel that the progress is very slow, and I wish there was some kind of a structure for somebody like me who have already passed the two first courses to progress further. There is no further road beyond a certain point. You just get to a certain very basic point of knowing the grammar, and then you don't know what to do further to improve your language. And when you try to do it in practice, very often you go to a shop, you try speaking Maltese, and they reply to you in English.
Does that happen a lot?
Yes, happens a lot.
Quasi dejjem jirrispondili bl-Ingliż. U ħafna drabi ngħidilhom tista' titkellem miegħi bil-Malti jekk jogħġbok u forsi sentenza u wara Ingliż. I feel now that I've reasoned out that the reason people aren't speaking to you in Maltese is simply because it's automatically they're speaking in English.
It's out of courtesy. They think it's easier for me if they reply in English.
Maltese people are too nice, aren't they? So somebody speaks in English. How often do you say, well, you should learn Maltese. Why should I speak with you in English? Because you won't be so rude. Nobody is that rude here. I think the better you get at speaking, the more people will reply to you in Maltese and continue with longer conversations.
I had some good experiences speaking basic Maltese and trying to understand with the Maltese taxi drivers. These are great, yes, absolutely. Whenever I have a taxi, I love to have a Maltese taxi driver. Very talkative, very friendly, the best. So, so these are my best experiences actually speaking in practice.
The guy came to read the meters recently and I spoke to him in Maltese and he didn't even bat an eyelid and I was like, I want to kiss you. And he replied to me in Maltese and I replied. And I went like, oh, I love you, I love you.
I think that the concept of teaching Maltese to foreigners is very new to Malta. I think that most Maltese assume that since English is an official language, foreigners will not want to learn Maltese. So there is very little structures, there is very little experience in teaching Maltese to foreigners. At the beginning of 90s, English was not very popular in Poland at all. And the schools started popping out in the 90s and then 2000s, teaching English to adults. And one technique called the Kalan method was found to be extremely useful for teaching English to adults, because it has one very simple rule. The teacher only speaks the language that they teach. So, in a way, the students are immediately forced to only speak that language to the teacher. I was thinking that this type of experience for other languages is global. You could find that information, you could find other organizations that are experienced, and you could try to use that to teach Maltese. But for that, you have to have a structure of teaching the teachers. And that is something that is new. I believe that the University of Malta only last year or 2 years ago had their first graduates of a course of teaching Maltese language to foreigners. And perhaps these people are like the new beginning, the beginning of a good wave.
I think that one of the good ways for people to start speaking is not to worry about being able to say a whole sentence in Maltese, to concentrate on the words they know in Maltese and to say them. Then the words they don't know to say in English to start with. So you might know 5 words and you can put them into a sentence, but to make a whole sentence you need some English words to fill it out. Then when you know 10 words you can make a few more sentences and you can continue using English where you don't know the Maltese word. So they get to actually say something, because it's that sense of having the word in your mouth. I think, first of all, that you feel comfortable to say it, but if you wait until you know 1,000 words, then, and 1,000 conjugations of verbs and whatever, by then you've just lost it, haven't you? So, but we're focusing too much on getting it all correct.
There is not a single app to learn Maltese. There is a Bluebird Maltese, but it's not too good. I tried. It's at one of the language apps. Only one of the language apps that I found actually has a Maltese course. There is an Udemy app which has courses, and there was a Maltese one which I bought. Luckily I could have returned, get the money back, because it was taught by a French guy. Yeah, French guy trying to teach Maltese with horrible pronunciation.
Jena lalim le mentix lalim.
I think in general, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's easier to go in with a group of people because you all feel a bit kind of like, okay, we're all struggling a bit with this, whatever, than actually using an app personally. But then I'm sure there would be people who would find an app useful. It would suit perhaps their working schedule or whatever.
There is an application for a phone which is super popular worldwide. Duolingo is very well designed for teaching languages. It has a lot of languages. It teaches Polish. It teaches Irish Gaelic. Wow! It teaches Klingon from Star Trek. It teaches Valerian from Game of Thrones. But it doesn't teach Maltese. Why? Why doesn't it teach Maltese? I understand, maybe the interest isn't there. Maybe there are more people in the world that want to learn Klingon than want to learn Maltese. But I'm sure that the government could at least try to reach out, try to do something, or maybe even imitate that app and develop an app for people worldwide to start learning. Basically, I feel there is a lot that can be done more to start promoting the language. And right now, there is definitely a good move with the President's office. President has become very interested in promoting Maltese language amongst Maltese youth. That is a very good step, and this has to go further and further and further. But I think that while this problem is already being addressed and noticed, you also have to realize that at the moment 20% of Malta's population is foreigners. 20%. That 20% is a lot. If you don't address that group, if you don't promote the language in that group, if you don't give them the option, if you don't do something to make it even necessary to learn the language, and if the population of Malta grows in that direction, which is possible in the future, we might have even more foreigners. At a certain point in time, we're going to have a huge chunk of the population that does not speak any Maltese at all. And in the end, I'm afraid that Maltese may end up in a situation like Scottish Gaelic, like Irish Gaelic, like Welsh, like the UK languages, which have completely disappeared because English took over. And believe me, I don't want that to happen. So we need to invest. We need to invest in apps to teach the language to foreigners as well. I know some of them will not see the need to learn Maltese at all because they're expats, typical expats. So they stay in Malta for 2 years and then, oh, I'm bored of Malta, I'll go to Portugal now, right? There's a lot of young people who do that. And those I don't expect to even start learning. But there are a lot who have made their home here and who actually want to learn. They should be pampered. They're the ones who can actually promote the language even further. Maltese is an amazing, beautiful language, and it needs tender love and care from everybody.
Mill-ewwel lezzjoni li kelli irrid nitgħallem il-Malti u qatt ma ħassejt le wis diffiċli m'hemmx bżonn li nitgħallem. Kull jum nagħmel xi xogħol jew xi ħaġa fuq il-lingwa u kull darba li poġġi fil-mejda u bdejt nistudju inħoss fil-post favorita tiegħi fil-moħħi tiegħi fejn hemm ħafna gost. Inħobb il-vjaġġ kollha. Ħafna drabi ngħid dan il-vjaġġ l-aqwa vjaġġ tal-ħajti. Score.
Jekk inti barranin u trid titgħallem il-Malti, naħseb li waħda mill-metodi l-aktar tajjeb u tipprova tisma' u tifhem il-lirika tal-kanzunetti bil-Malti. I took all the written lyrics from Brodu that I had, like of all my favorite songs, and I was translating it. I was trying to understand, and a couple of words I caught thanks to this. First song which actually I fell in love with was Il-Bir by djun. A lot of people are very proud of their roots, are very proud of Malta, very proud of their language as well. But there is a huge group who don't.
There are a group of people that love the language and they know about the language. But there's a huge group of people that, you know, that I don't think it matters that much to them. Yes, I do think there's a future for the Maltese language because there are people who are passionate about it. But I think there's a number of people who express passion about it, but in reality, they don't really want to do anything to ensure it stays. But I think there are enough people that really do care, but it's only a small group of people.
There is one thing that is worth it. When you're a foreigner and when you learn Maltese and you start speaking Maltese to somebody, in many cases, you will see their face light up. They're like, it makes them so happy to see that somebody appreciates the language. and it's friggin' worth it. It's really friggin' worth it. I don't do it for that reason, but it also often changes the way that the person is treating you. You get much closer to that person immediately, even if it's in a shop, if it's a shopkeeper, if it's a taxi driver. There is a certain distance when you're a foreigner, and then when you start speaking Maltese, that distance is gone. And it's really worth it.
darba tfajt ġebla fil-bir biex nara kemmu font